Okay, this is a really important chapter. From this point forward, we're going to learn a lot about triangles. Triangles, believe it or not, at a higher level is the most challenging subject. I have an uncle who was a retired professor from Columbia University, and he was the chair of the applied math department there for a long time. And I remember he used to tell me that triangles are most challenging because it doesn't give you any information. Unlike other shapes, other equations, algebra, you can use your reasoning skills to develop a lot of information out of what's provided to you. But triangle is just like what this definition says. It's just a figure with three segments, and the three segments have to be joined. They're non-collinear points, and they have to be joined at the vertex. So let's dig in. Okay, just a quick clarification. Vertex, it's very intuitive. It's just these tippy points. Is where the point where two sides meet. Let's see. First off, a quick review of middle school information, classification by sides, and classification by angles. That's how we classify triangles. We either do it by side or we do it by angles. Please do not confuse them. Later on, we're going to learn how they're related and how they correspond to each other. Obviously, equilateral triangle, equilateral, it suggests just that. It's all equal. So equilateral triangle has all three congruent sides. And this one, at least two sides are congruent. That gives you a isosceles triangle. So in other words, this can be equilateral can also be called isosceles, but we because of some special characteristic associated with equilateral triangles, we isolate them out, right? Scalene, it just means that no congruent sides, so zero congruent sides. Now, if we classify them by angles, it's the same thing. If these three angles are congruent, we have the same conclusion. So these are corresponding to each other, right? And if a triangle has three acute angles, we call them acute triangle. If it has one right angle, we call them a right triangle. Obviously, it cannot have two right angles. If you have two right angles, the third angle doesn't exist. It's not a triangle anymore. Obtuse triangle are these fat triangles that has one angle that's greater than 90 degrees right here. So let's see, how do we classify them in this example? We have we have three sides. None of them are equal to each other. So in this example, this one is scalene, and because there's no congruent sides. Second one, all three sides are congruent, and therefore this is equilateral. And then the third one, only two sides out of three are congruent. So this is isosceles. There we go. Straightforward. In this example, now we have to classify them by angles and sides. Let's see what we can do here. First one, we have a 40-degree and then we have 70 degrees. So these two are congruent. It's also given that these two sides are congruent, right? You have learned this already. If two angles like this one in a triangle are congruent, then their corresponding sides are congruent. So for A, because the triangle has three angles with measures less than 90 degrees, it is an acute triangle. That refers to the shape of it, but in terms of angle and sides, because two angles are congruent and two sides are congruent, so this one is a whoops, I cannot spell this word. Isosceles. There we go. So it's an acute isosceles triangle. Okay, we just add them together. For B, the only interesting information I think is the right triangle, and that by itself is enough that it is right triangle, and because there's no congruent sides, obviously it's a scalene triangle. It's a right scalene triangle. Okay. Third one, looks ugly. What does it give us? This one, there is no sides that are congruent, and none of the angles are congruent to each other. And in terms of shape, we have one fat angle at 130 degrees, and so this triangle is an obtuse, and it's also scalene. So it's an obtuse scalene triangle. That's how we classify them. So in other words, you look for congruent sides. If they don't have it, obviously it's a scalene. Or you look for congruent angles that give you hints as well. Okay. Last example. Now we're asked to identify the parts of the triangle. Identify which side is opposite each angle. So BC, let's see, BC is right here. And the opposite angle would be right here. So that would be angle A. Now AC is right here in blue, and the opposite angle would be B. Excuse me. So AB would be C, which is the right angle. Okay. This unit is very basic, but it's really important. Make sure that you can master this information really fluently before we can move on. Thank you, guys.